Hey everyone, Tahumata 1888, giving out what I liked and what I disliked about 17 films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because we only got like 2 days until the final Avengers, well, no, not the final, but the third Avengers film, Infinity War. And yes, I know there's one missing, Black Panther, but that's obviously not released yet. It just came in since January. 10 years since the Marvel Cinematic Universe existed. And 10 years since Robert Downey Jr. was Iron Man, and all the way up to and not including the Incredible Hulk because he was played by Edward Norton in this, and then got replaced by Mark Ruffalo in the Avengers. The Black Widow was introduced in 2010's Iron Man 2. Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans, respectively, as Lone Captain America, was introduced in 2011. I'm going to point out a bunch of things. Step 1, what I didn't like. Step 2, what I did like. And Step 3, spoiler alert. So be aware of what when watching this video. Okay, first off, the least favorite parts of the Marvel Cinematic Universe will have to be some things I have to admit to agree along with everybody else is Disney's hands on Marvel Entertainment, especially the Captain America Civil War film. If there's anything to do to fix Batman vs Superman or any other future DC films, then I can accept them and tell them and remind me if there's any more good DC films. And second of all, Inkle, because to those who read what happened after Justice Henry Cavill was portraying Superman in one more DC film, it means he's not going to come back. To those who liked Cavill's Superman, who liked Henry Cavill's version of Superman, remind me in the comments, please. Okay, and least favorite parts of it will be with Iron Man 2. It kind of is a bit. I've seen the film and it's kind of a bit of a jazzy tone. The way Rockwell, Justin Hammer kind of acquainted with Ivan Vanko, and kind of how Pepper Potts now became a character who argues with Tony much. Those are the least favorite parts, and the fight sequences kind of is a bit. It's kind of and the fight sequences is too. This one I'm not so sure because I have to look back at it. So I'm gonna create another video to what I think of this film later on. The Incredible Hulk, I mean. Thor. The least favorite part would have to be Odin's kind of reasons for uniting the realms, because if it weren't for him, Loki would have turned evil. But I know it's part of the point. I know it's part of the story to make Loki's character become evil in this film. But I was never fond of the way Odin's character was. But I was never overly fond of what Odin's character was like. The first Captain America, not a problem, because this and the first Iron Man are the only films okay. And the final film of just Paramount Pictures, and then in turn, as soon as the Paramount logo was there, the Walt Disney Company distributed the Avengers film, so it kind of transitions that film at Iron Man 3. The least favorite part of the least favorite part will have to be just like how Odin's reason led to a villain's escape would be Fury's. Yes, I know it's part of the plot, where we see a dramatic event in New York where Loki does terrorize it, but if it weren't for Fury and the Tesseract thing, the Avengers wouldn't have accused him for being that homicidal to use the Tesseract for WMD. WMD is in Weapons of Mass Destruction. Sorry, the lighting because of the sun. Here we are. Of course, I'm from the UK. I'm from the UK. That's why there's a word assemble. In the US, in some other countries like the United States, it says the Avengers, and that's it. With Iron Man 3, the only kind of least favorite part would be when I saw Ben Kingsley at the bed scene when Tony interrogates him and found out he's just an actor. I was like the way when I noticed Ben Kingsley's character says he's Trevor Slattery, just an actor who plays a Mandarin. And I was like, then where the hell's the real Mandarin? Until a Guy Pearce's character exposed himself, and I guess that part puts people off that much. That's the Mandarin identity. The Mandarin identity thing. I feel like they were trying to gimmick the Dark Knight trilogy for the Ra's al Ghul identity, and then the Child Who Escaped the Pit identity. Thor: The Dark World. The only ridiculous part would be the Darcy and Ian scene. I'm gonna point out when Ian threw a car at the bunch of Malekith's minions, and Darcy and Ian were lip locking, and Jane Foster teleported them close to herself, to herself and Eric Selvig. And speaking of Selvig, the idea that the nude scene, I know it's because he's kind of mentally crazy because of the events in New York in the first Avengers, but they wrote the most ridiculous. Whoever wrote that film had to put some ridiculous things. I get Marvel wants to be funny, but it's not supposed to be that overly funny. But this is going overly fun. This is going as overly funny as the Tinseltown Tunes' way with the Glatorian films that hardcore fans of Bionicle didn't like at all. Marvel's going a bit over-humoured, especially the Age of Ultron, which I don't get. How they balance Age of Ultron be a good film, but saying on the humour was overfilled. The Captain America film, I guess the least favorite probably would be Robert Redford, aka Alexander Pierce, and I did see a video called Biggest Missteps in Superhero Films in Watch Mojo, where Robert Redford's on that list and Topher Grace is Venom in Spider-Man 3. But other than that, the film is kind of okay. The film is kind of okay, but the only thing I didn't like is the Alexander Pierce character. Guardians of the Galaxy, I have no idea what to say because this is a Marvel film I have ever heard of it during the 1990s. The only Marvel characters I know would be Spider-Man, Iron Man, Captain America, the Incredible Hulk, and the X-Men. First time I was new to Thor was around 2011 when they introduced Thor, and this is now new to me. And then the same time I was being introduced to Ant-Man in 2015, and they introduced Black Panther in 2016, and he had a standalone film in 2018. But I did get one of Lego Guardians of the Galaxy online. It's a Lego film to kind of play Emmett Brakowski and Star-Lord looking at each other in the mirror because it's the same guy. I guess you could say the least favorite probably would be the cancer scene, the prologue of the prologue of the film because I'm kind of creeped because one thing I'm going to say which sure I get it's part of life is that but I'm going to say this is death really puts me off that much for real life technically. But at least it's not as gross. But at least the film's not as gross as the second film, and I'll explain what I mean by that. The Age of Ultron. The only least favorite part I get to see is the life evolution thing that Ultron always philosophically informs about. But I know that Ultron's character, but it's not his character I'm criticizing. It's just myself on life. But other than that, the only least favorite part, I guess you could say, will have to be the talking a bit too much on humor. Because this film managed to wrote of like 40% of the humor, while the rest is just serious. It's just serious. Yes, I know 40% is not enough to reach over 50%, but the film contains so much. The film contains a lot of humor. The whole language, the whole dialogue, and especially I heard people laugh when Vision when Vision exposed the audience into the way when he's carrying Thor's hammer, from which not everyone in the Marvel Cinematic Universe has ever done. But at least we get to see Thanos as playing a dramatic tone when he grabs the Infinity Gauntlet. And I was told that this film is kind of overstuffed. Like, it's supposed to be about Ultron, but it also introduced the Infinity Stones. It also introduced the concept of the philosophical concept of the Infinity Stones. So tell me what you think. Tell me if you think this film is as overstuffed or not, but not as overstuffed as Spider-Man 3 or the Amazing Spider-Man 2, but overstuffed in the way you think it doesn't need to be necessary to add in this film. With Ant-Man, the only thing I guess you could say will have to be because as Scott Lang's other gang, the whole Mexican song things. I'm not only fond of Mexican songs, so sorry to disappoint with this film. But it's not. But the only thing that's kind of good will be Ant-Man's redemption for his daughter Maxie. And Hank Pym helps give redemption, and because they wrote a story where he has to steal something from the Avengers facility, is what led to the reason where the Falcon, introduced in Captain America: Winter Soldier, decides to need his help in the following Marvel film after this. And then Captain America: Civil War. The only least favorite part, I guess you could say, will have to be the whole family loss, because it's just all over. Putting me. It kind of puts me off that much. By that the one scene when a black woman blames Tony for her son's demise in the Sokovia incident, it kind of feels like that's what convinced. I feel like that's responsible for converting Tony into what we call a primary adversary to engage in the third act of the film. I guess because I know it's not. I know what you're saying, and I know what you're saying. It's part of to prove Tony's self-tormented emotions, because he was responsible for creating Ultron. Another thing that I was kind of a bit overly, I was overly brainwashed. Not brainwashed as the Winter Soldier, but brainwashed in a way when I see it every time. That was there. Of all ideas he had to come up to try to fix. He's kind of evilly torn. He needs to protect the Accords, and all he had to do was hire a 15-year-old kid, by convincing his aunt, and if he could join forces, what we call the Stark internship, and secretly he needs his help to help half the Avengers, to sub Cap's unit. I get that, but the idea of a 15-year-old kid, I feel like there could have been some sort of way to do that. Right. Another thing would be the third act. I get it's dramatic that the Avengers have been disbanded because of that, but the third act is kind of what we call a sibling rivalry, as in like two brothers fighting each other. What I mean by that, I have to admit, I'm not comfortable with two brothers fighting each other, since the Super Mario Bros. Anime series is his old brother, and the Fountains of Wisdom theme in Bionicle 3 Web of Shadows and stuff. One of the reasons I wasn't comfortable with the third. Those are the only reasons I'm not comfortable with the third act, because these two always treat themselves as brothers. And yes, I know that Captain America and Iron Man's names are different last names, Rogers and Stark, but you know what I mean in the third act. And Tony's character then, it kind of evolves into becoming a bit selfishly naive. Even though that's what I don't get. I could have sworn there was one Captain America. I could have sworn I saw in the Civil War comic Captain America was the one who was actually selfish, and Tony tries to maintain his balance. And the thing is, it's been 8 years from the first Iron Man all up to this film. 8 years since the first Iron Man all up to this film. Tony is supposed to progress from being selfish to being now exposing his morals to others, especially the Sokovian thing. I get he's out of control because after so long, from 1991 to 2016, which is like 15 years. Which is like 15 years since Tony's parents were killed. He never knew how it happened, and I get he's conflicting Barnes because he had no idea Barnes killed him until with the surveillance camera and stuff, which kind of puts me in some concerns in this film, was that of all locations Iron Man's parents crashed into and a car crashed into, it had to be the closest thing where a camera randomly is conveniently there for recording evidence, and Barnes knew and saw that. And then another thing I don't get, when Barnes killed Iron Man's parents, he could have. What I don't get is that when Captain Falcon managed to get him into custody by restraining his hybrid metal arm to something so he wouldn't escape at all. How the hell does he know how the hell does he remember who he killed? In 1991, if being brainwashed, you have no idea who these people are. And second of all, from 1942 all the way up to 1991, Barnes being unconscious would have wiped out his memory from recognizing Howard Stark. If you were absent away from Howard Stark from 1942 to 1991, you have no idea. Imagine if you didn't even recognize the guy. That's what I don't get. And how does Bonds know who he killed? How does Bond remember who he killed if he's brainwashed? If you guys have ideas, let me know in the comments. And one more, and another thing that kind of puts me off most is because of the scene of Iron Man's parents being killed by Bonds and Tony sees them from his face. I would see that it kind of transition evolve. Like first Black Panther plot chases Bonds, and then at the same time Black Panther listens to Captain America's conversation with Zemo, who was the one who killed Black Panther's father in the Vietnam bombing. Vienna bombing. You know when they were about the Sokovian Accords. It's like at the same time Black Panther now converts back to realizing it was Zemo who killed his father. Then in turn Zemo exposes Iron Man's parents were killed by Bonds, and then it kind of converts. And second of all, because whatever happened to Batman vs Superman on the reviews, I'm kind of stuck into not seeing this film. I'm kind of stuck not seeing this film at all because people always mumble some people argue that yes, this film builds up to the moments from the first Iron Man all up to this, or the first Iron Man all up to Infinity War. I get it builds up, but DC I'm kind of worried about. Doctor Strange. Not sure what to say, but the neurosynetics, the hospital scene kind of is the only thing that puts me off. And other than that, nothing much. First I wasn't even comfortable of the 2016 DC logo. Now I just realized that they're not the only ones. Marvel changed their intro, and they added the word studios where they put the lines on the top and bottom. And they even redid the Marvel Studios intro since the introduction of Doctor Strange. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. The one thing I wasn't comfortable about will have to be when Ego showed the pregnancy hologram of Star-Lord's mother, because it kind of makes it, because of that, it's putting me off against human nature. Yeah. And everything these days now look a lot gross. Things these days now look a lot more gross, isn't it? Spider-Man: Homecoming. The only thing I could say that wasn't comfortable about is the whole friendly neighborhood tone they put into his character. I get Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man, and I get it. But the only thing I wasn't. But the idea that they treated his whole friendly neighborhood tone is kind of over the top. And he's accused for being he's accused troublemaker as the Chuckle Brothers and Chuckle Vision, or even the Mr. Bean franchise, or whatever you name it, or even the Home Alone franchise. That's the only things I didn't like, because they wrote the whole troublemaking tone, and the idea that kind of, and especially the ending where he got the suit back and he exposed himself and he exposed his identity in front of his aunt. That should not have happened at all, because this is not the time. Because I didn't feel a 15-year-old could be ready to expose his own identity to his own aunt. So one of the reasons I kind of stuck into Raimi's version of the Spider-Man series in the first place, because at least it is as serious as all the other Marvel films before this. And Thor Ragnarok. I guess you could say the only kind of thing that I find weird is that they always play those rock and roll songs, especially when Thor exposes himself to being the god of thunder. The only things I wasn't even comfortable about would be the only thing that was kind of, sick to see is the eye patch, is the way Hela struck one of Thor's eyes. And the gross part, when Hulk wasn't on his pants, and the most gross part would be when Hulk's not on his pants. Yes, I guess you could say that. And now for the good parts about it. Okay, first Iron Man is the only kind of good film alongside the first Captain America, that's for sure. Because at least at least the characters are not difficult on each other. They're only like kind of 40% a little bit difficult on each other. That's it. The first Captain America, at least, kind of that and Man of Steel, kind of that alongside Man of Steel are kind of like the only kind of films were kind of progressive with the red and blue who dressed up superheroes. And they're followed by these, and what's convenient is that this film's followed by this film where Captain America meets Iron Man, and they kind of quarreled a little bit. Same reason goes from Man of Steel to Batman vs Superman, where they met and then quarreled a little bit, and they solved the different, and in the end they solved the differences, and then they're almost performing. But of course, don't dress not yet the Justice League, because that's like a few films away until then. But obviously, that's because this is the start, and this is supposed to be the backstory, and this is the backstory basics that built up to this. Same reason goes for like how after Man of Steel, then we have a few films, and then Wonder Woman, and then the Justice League. The only kind of favorite part about this film had to be kind of Iron Man's behavior, is that Iron Man does act a bit serious on things, especially the fact that he's using some kind of makeshift technology. If his Mark 42 is still under a charge and his suits are still buried in the debris in Malibu, like because of those until then he had to some makeshift stuff so at least he doesn't have to wear the suits to be Iron Man at all. And because his arrogance and selfishness is depicted on this in Iron Man 2 and the first Avengers, at least it could have made him progress. It could have made him progress, realizing he was a bit over the top on others, especially Guy Pearce's character, who reveals himself to be the real Mandarin. When Guy Pearce's real Mandarin walks up exposing himself to being the Mandarin in front of Iron Man in the third act, you could see the intimidated look on Tony's face. If you repeat that scene over and over, try to pay attention to Tony's face when Guy Pearce's character exposes himself to be the real Mandarin.